A question that we get very often in the community and in our daily lives, from people who message us is how do you become nomadic? Like, how do you build different income streams? So I thought in this episode, we can go back and forth on if we were to start over today, like drop all of our income streams and all of our businesses, all of our income, and imagine that, we're just leaving 9 to 5 right now, or we're still in our 9 to 5. How would we start from scratch to build a life of freedom, as we like to call it? Why don't you go first? You're pretty recent, like you just quit a few months ago. So let's start with what income streams did you already have when you quit? Like what was your first income stream, etc.? Actually, let's roll it back. I mean, we should talk about what our current income streams are first. And then if we were to drop all of it, how would we start from zero again?
The biggest income stream right now is a consulting project that I do with a startup in New York. It's 20 hours per week and it pays quite well. I think it's very flexible. Though I'm in Asia right now, they're in New York. I can schedule my hours however I want. I can scale it down to 15 or 25. It's very flexible in that sense. So that's the first income stream.
How did you build that income stream?
It was actually a recommendation. So I think it's really important to have good connections within your network at the startups you worked at the companies you worked at, because when they were scaling, they received funding. The first person that they wanted to bring on board was me. And then they're like, what about Emily? Like she can do this marketing community outreach for us. So it was actually by connection. It wasn't I actually applied for it.
Who did you know there or who referred you?
I know the executive team. So the CEO, the CTO, and the VP of Eng used to work at the startup I was at back in San Francisco. And the CEO moved to this new startup and recruited a bunch of these people. And then my name came up and then they reached out to me. And so I got hired on.
So people that you've kind of already worked with before at a previous company. Actually, that's the easiest way to get clients. Most freelancers I know get it from people that they've worked with previously. And my first job outside of my 9 to 5 was consulting for the CTO who then went on to start a new startup of the first company that I was ever at too.
It's so important. So, and then there's actually another project I'm considering. It's around tech education using AI. It's a platform where kids can speak in front of an iPad or a computer, and it will detect inflection tones and just
Wait, is
accuracy.
it Orai?
No, it's called OK Sensei. It's started by a Taiwanese American
I
founder.
saw this. Yeah, it's in the Taiwanese American incubator that we were looking at. Yeah.
Yeah, I was recommended to their CEO as well as someone to help. And I'm still considering if I want to be a part of it, but I really like the mission. I do random side projects here and there with content partnerships. I think I mentioned to you, I was thinking of doing something with Coffee Meets Bagel actually, but they wanted to retain the rights to the user generated content for lifetime. And I was I don't want my face to be on Coffee Meets Bagel content for the rest of my life. Yeah. And so I was
who's this pretty girl on an ad, our ad? Oh, she's 50 now.
Oh God. I'm these are things to consider as a creator, right? And so I paused that project. And so I'm actually rethinking about how I want to present myself to certain companies. I'm redoing my media list, my media kit, but it's through content partnerships, sometimes through one-on-one calls, consultative calls from people who want to work in Singapore or just Asia in general. I actually upped my prices because technically I don't really like doing these one-on-one calls. So I'm if you want to chat, you got to be serious. So I increased
just be that's actually a service I offer because we talked in a previous episode about not giving away our time so much because that prevents us from doing all these other things, right? Which also helps other people. Okay, so you have income streams of sponsorship deals with brands and also one-on-one calls helping people move to Asia. How many followers did you have? Or how did that work? How many followers on YouTube, Instagram, etc. for you to land those deals? And how do you land those deals?
Yeah, I think roughly 1,000. Once I hit the 1,000 mark, I could monetize on YouTube. You need 4,000 watch hours, 1,000 subs. But honestly, if you're creating videos consistently, you could still technically work with these content partners. You would probably just get paid a little bit less because of your following. But as long as you're creating content and it's good and it's interesting and there's some sort of growth, attribution, you could pitch yourself to any company. And so initially companies were reaching out to me being hey, do you want a free bag? Do you want to, you want food or we want these experiences, blah, blah, blah. And as an early creator, I was oh, this is great, free shit, blah, blah, blah. But then I realized I was I actually just want money. I don't want to be paid in food or random swag items. So I created a media list from Canva, which which includes like the demographics of my audience, like what I'm willing to do, like how much a reel or like a video or an ad insert would cost. And then I started pitching to companies whose products I actually use. And that includes, it could be like, tax services or like Coffee Meets Bagel, like an app, or like co-working spaces. Like I got a bunch of free stuff from like co-working spaces because I was like, hey, I'm in your city. Like,
yeah, you do a lot of videos of like, hey, here's me working at this co-working space, which is super authentic. How do you know how much to charge for these sponsorship deals?
It's hard. So like, I think in the beginning, I was just kind of like sussing it out, being like, okay, this video could be like 100 or like 200. I really didn't have a good way of like measuring it. But then there's a platform called FU Pay Me. I think it's started by like fuck you pay me. FU Pay Me. Yeah, FU Pay Me. Not if you pay me. FU Pay Me. So the founder is also from the Bay Area, but it's like almost like an Indeed or Glassdoor for content creators. And you get to know how much creators are getting paid and like what their following is, like what they landed. So that's a good platform. Also just like through Reddit, subreddits, and also pushing boundaries too. Like I was like, I'll like add on another 100 and see if they're willing to pay. And most oftentimes they are willing to pay.
How many deals have you done so far? And
probably over 10 so far.
Okay.
Like 10. Yeah. But they're like, some are really small, some are big. I think the biggest one I've ever done was like with Careerist. I think that's all the income streams that I have though, like holistically. And obviously like Option Asia, that newsletter I want to build. I only have like 200 subs, but I think that's also something I'm trying to grow along with like Asian Wonder Woman and then eventually charge for like media space,
Okay. So for media space, and also is that how you're planning on growing your one-on-one consulting service in helping people move to Asia?
Yeah.
So you've already done some of them just by posting and like being yourself. And then as people come in, there's too many inbounds. How do you decide who to charge and like who you're doing like a free coffee chat with right now?
Going back to like the conversation we had. So like while I'm in Singapore, the coffee chats that I'm having with people include like a journalist. She wants to like do a feature on like Asian Wonder Woman. I'm like, that provides value to the community because we get more coverage within like Southeast Asia. A girl reached out, I won't say her name, was like, oh, my friend said that you're here in Singapore. Let's get coffee. I'm an entrepreneur too. At this point, probably not. I'm not going to meet up because I just have too much going on. And it was more of just like, let's be friends, that kind of thing. Really just like keeping some space, like every Monday, maybe for like 2 to 3 hours. That's like when I will dedicate these like meetings. But beyond that, I'm trying to be more protective of my space right now. Yeah.
Boundaries are important.
Yeah. So yours. Yes.
Mine. As I mentioned at the beginning, my first income stream was also freelancing consulting, similar to you in the community. So I used to work at Wish, which is one of the largest shopping platforms in the world, at least back in 2018. It was the most downloaded shopping app above Amazon in the years that I was there. And I was managing merchant accounts. And so when I left, there was actually a lot of merchants that wanted my help in succeeding on Wish. And there was actually no any day for me to like consult for them. I wasn't giving away any secrets. Like I was basically like as if I was moving somewhere being an account manager. So I had one client there that was through Upwork. I was super surprised that they wanted to pay me on Upwork because Upwork has like a 30% fee or some kind of fee. But now I understand now as like an employer, and this is super important to recognize, is that big companies have a budget that they've dedicated to Upwork. And just like I actually give my employees like, hey, we have a Fiverr budget. If you want to go get a flyer done or like make a video and we don't have the resources to do it, go on Fiverr. Like here's the business credit card that's on Fiverr versus if they were going to try to bring on a separate consultant for their team, you just have to go through so many more approvals. And so that's why they paid me on Upwork. And then also like someone that I knew from a company that I used to work at hired me. He was the founder of a gaming startup, and that gaming startup wanted to get prizes through some vendor. So become kind of like a marketplace where you can buy things for the points that you win in the game. And 2018 was like the height of a lot of e-commerce. E-commerce was super, super hyped. Like Instagram shopping was going out. That's why I had an offer there at the end of 2018. So my skills were super in demand of like sourcing merchants, helping merchants succeed on platforms, understanding how like shopper dynamic works, what products were valuable, and like how to look at analytics and how to even track of whether we're successful. So all those things that I did at my work was just what people wanted. So it was really easy. So I did that for about 4 or 5 months, probably into 2019. And then I just didn't work for the next 6 months. And my income streams were basically non-existent. I lived off of my then boyfriend and husband for 6 months and off of my savings, pretty much. Like I just didn't make anything for like 3 or 4 months. And then I ended up taking this course, Vanessa Lau's Boss Gram Academy. Vanessa Lau's currently on sabbatical from her business, so you won't be able to find it anymore. But it was a course that helped new coaches become coaches. And I took that course and and launched a career coaching business. Because back in 2016, I wrote this article on how to job search in San Francisco, a few things that I wish I had known, and that went viral back in 2016. So now we're in end of 2019, and that article is like still number 1 or 2 on Google. If you search job search San Francisco, job hunt San Francisco, how to job hunt in San Francisco, I'm like definitely on the first page. I used to be the number 1 and number 2 hit of my 2 articles. And so with that, I got huge amounts of like LinkedIn messages from also Canadians who are looking to go to tech in Silicon Valley, as well as, non-technical, non-engineers. It was not as common just a few years ago. Now, I think it's actually quite common for non-technical grads to move into tech companies because everything's tech now. Everything has like a tech component in Silicon Valley. And so in 2019, I just saw this opportunity, just like you saw with Option Asia. I'm like, wow, a lot of people want to move into tech. And so I already had all these people that were already inbound every single week. I ended up taking that course, which taught me how to kind of like source clients from Facebook groups, which is just through user research. I offered free coaching calls that were really sales calls. And then from there, I brought on people who I tried to target people like 2 to 3 years out of school who had money rather than like new grads and like just people who are looking to pivot into the tech industry. And that was a pretty solid income stream because within 3 months, I grew it to like 15K that month into like a group coaching. I ended up selling a course and now that's turned into an ebook that's $27 and I sell it on Gumroad. I made a few $1,000s there. It's like a very small income stream, but like in general, that realm has made me like about 30K, 40K, like during the time that I was doing it. And now it just, whoever finds it, finds it. I don't really, and like actually whoever asks me still about career stuff, I send them there. I'm thinking about turning that into not a break into tech because I just talk about how to interview and how the tech ecosystem works. Like how do you write a really good resume, cover letter? How do you write a cold DM? Like all of these skills are super important no matter what you want to go into. So I'm thinking about doing a rebrand to turning that into how to get a remote job and just like keeping the same content, because that's what we talk about now. And then there's my main job, which I'm the CEO of an education company. I get paid actually as a contractor because I sold my company. And so I also get paid technically hourly based on the number of hours I work, but I work 40 hours. So I just get paid really like an annual salary. What else do I have? I guess investment income. I own a Toronto condo that's rented out, but currently it's not really positive income. It's kind of like barely break even. I think I put some money into it still every month, but technically there is income. Just expenses are higher than the income. What else do I do?
Didn't you have like property, like a shared investment property in like Japan or something or somewhere in Asia?
Yeah. I mean, we can talk about investment as a whole, but I wouldn't consider that like an income stream. It's just an investment that's not paid off. So yes, I bought into like a fund that the only use of this fund was to buy this Kyoto hotel that was distressed. So it bought way under market and the latest report, because there's a huge amount of tourists right now going to Japan. So it's doing really well right now. And the goal is for it to sell to a REIT in Japan in the next 5 years. And then the target returns is 20% IRR. So it's like 20% per year over like 5 years. So actually the longer it's held there, probably the better it is with this kind of market. But I don't pull money from it. There's no distribution. I have a lot of angel investments into funds, crypto stuff a little bit too, but there's no distributions from it. So I wouldn't consider that even like income. Another income stream that I used to have was I used to be on like GLG and I don't remember any of the other companies, but they're middlemen that help consulting firms and PE firms who are looking to buy companies or to understand a space, connect with experts. And I got called upon that from LinkedIn and they paid like $300-400 an hour. Actually, some experts can get paid $800 an hour, but that's also not sustainable. Like I probably made a few $1,000s from it last year. Now I don't do it anymore because it's just not worth my time right now in terms of like how much money I'm leaving on the table, like not focusing on my current job. If I like do that and the exponential value that I can drive there versus spending an hour telling an investment banker the ins and outs of like e-commerce. I made a lot of money there because Wish IPO'd at the end of 2021. And so in 2021, there was a lot of people trying to explore like e-commerce and I hopped on a lot of those calls, which paid me quite a bit of money. I think that's it.
I think based from like both of our experiences, once you become a specialist in a certain like niche field, you can really like monetize and like sometimes like the results of like making money are like actually pretty lucrative because like you're the go-to specialist. So I think it's like good advice for someone and anyone out there listening is like, know what you're good at and like definitely be able to like market those skills in a way where like it's revenue generating.
Yeah. And like for you, for
right?
example, it's just you lived in Asia. Like, you know,
right?
there's so many people that live in Asia and there's not that many people
Yeah.
that go out and talk about it. And
Yeah.
you're definitely an expert because you've thought about it and you know how to explain to someone and you've like dissected it and put into steps that are actionable. And not everyone who moves to Asia does that, right? And so me too, like career coaching, a lot of people who are non-technical go into tech, right? But not a lot of people actually go and talk about it. And we've learned that you can only talk about so many things because you get burnt out. And like we've talked about, oh my gosh, like so many different Instagram accounts, so many different income streams. You need distribution for each one. And it's just super unsustainable. And so between you and I, like you say that, okay, you have like 3 streams of income. You have freelancing, you have like sponsorships, you have like one-on-one consulting. We're trying to build Asian Wonder Woman into something that we don't even know what it is yet. And for me, like it's mostly my core income stream of like my jobs, so, like similar to your freelancing. Let's just say my like CEO position. And my goal is to build this into an $100 million education company. When you're trying to build something that big, I'm spending most of my time thinking about it. Everything else is just like, how do I still be me and not just this person that is only in education, right? And that's why I'm doing this podcast, why I'm doing Asian Wonder Woman. I don't talk about career coaching anymore and I don't talk about e-commerce anymore because there's just too many facets of me and I don't care, I guess, about that stuff as much. And I need to think about how to pivot my existing stuff, like the Break into Tech ebook, into remote work, because that falls under that life of freedom that I'm hoping to give with Asian Wonder Woman and my students at Prequel.
Yeah. I feel like education is a pretty big umbrella for you though, and then everything else can just like fall underneath it. I definitely feel that you've made yourself into more like the go-to industry leader in like ed tech in general, which is like, it makes sense, right? Because that's like where you want to go and where you want to be. But it makes sense, like if you were to have different products just underneath like your own personal brand, like not related to Prequel, like that's still very doable. Everyone's just like a walking media company or like a walking business at some point.
Every person is a walking media company. Eventually, like every single brand will have their own little media arm because you just need your own distribution, right? So for me, like my Instagram is dead right now because I haven't been posting. I used to post a lot of reels just like you. Like I wanted to grow and like my travel and like freedom Asian Wonder Woman persona was just like so time consuming. Twitter's like my main push right now. I don't know why I chose Twitter, mostly because I realized it's actually a lot of fun because I have a lot of random thoughts and I can just type them. And so I spend Sunday writing. I tweet like 3-4 times a day right now and I write them all on Sunday. It's just all scheduled. And I gave up on my own like personal, I've given up twice now, but I might pick it back up, my own personal newsletter because like, you know, we run one for Asian Wonder Woman. I run one for Prequel.
The one that you and Owen have, like that one's like pretty consistent.
Sorry, Owen and I have one. I have so many Substacks, like 4 or something that I've been admin on. I'm like, man, it's just so confusing being me, you know?
I mean, okay, so one thing I realized too is like the consolidation, like my 2 goals only are like growing Asian Wonder Woman's newsletter to 10K and also growing Option Asia to 10K subs. Everything
10K
else,
is
I'm
too
just, like,
unambitious, man. We're going for
Really?
100K. Yeah. I actually hate these YouTube videos that say, if I were to start from nothing, it's like, you're not starting from nothing. You're starting with like the knowledge and the skills and the network that you've built from like doing what you do. So like the best course of action is just take action. Those entrepreneurs who are like, oh, I built like a 10K coaching business from like day one. And it's like, yeah, but when people want you to coach them, if you weren't first a successful entrepreneur and you're like past experience, right? Like that's not true. So I think just like, as we're talking about this, like we take this with a grain of salt of like what we can do and like what we would do differently. But there's a lot of things I still want to do and I want to do differently. But like, I mean, I just talked a lot. Why don't you go first?
Okay. I mean, I think like the newsletter business is actually like doing pretty well. Like you see these like newsletter businesses like Morning Brew, TLDR, or like
Milk
Tech
Road.
News. Like
Milk Road sold for like millions of dollars. Yeah.
It's insane.
Within 6
Because
months,
I realized that too. Like all these like social media platforms like Instagram, TikTok, whatever, like they can get banned in like just in a few days, right? Like TikTok got banned in India, also in Hong Kong, maybe in Taiwan. So it's just like data. I think data is very important. And if you can own your subs data, like through a newsletter, it actually is like you get to control like what goes in and what goes out. So I think initially I wish I just like grew some kind of newsletter, like a niche newsletter, build a following from that. And then once I think you get like 5K or 10K subscribers, you can start charging like thousands of dollars for like a tiny sentence in your newsletter because you just have eyeballs on it. So I think I would have just like focused more on like that. And it's very scalable because you're just writing. You don't need to like do videos or video editing. It's literally just like your own words and a bit of research and like having a flair. So I wish I had done that. And that's why I'm doing Option Asia, because I'm like, I think there's potential in like growing newsletters right now.
Yeah, and newsletters have always been the thing for the last like 10 years, you know? I feel like it's just catching on right now, but still not for everyone. And there's new ways to grow newsletters now. So for Prequel, we ran some ads on Farnham Street by Shane Parrish. Shane Parrish is from Ottawa. So like I actually met him in Ottawa, which was pretty cool. And I bought his like Decision by Design course, but he has a newsletter of 300,000 people. And a lot of them are like Wall Street parents, which is like our target market, right? Like we want their kids to attend our programs. He charges $6,000 for like a photo and like how many characters, like one sentence on his newsletter. It's a newsletter. And not only that, but you can't just buy one. If you want to advertise with him, you have to buy 6. So the minimum bundle is $36,000 in order to like advertise on it. I'm like, oh my God. My head of marketing right now is running a newsletter called Superhuman. It's about AI. So every week he talks about like the latest that's happening in AI, which is all the hype right now. And he is one of the fastest growing newsletters. He grew to 40,000 he also has like 500,000 Twitter and, you know, LinkedIn following. So it's very easy for him to grow his newsletter, 40,000 in like 6-7 weeks. And he just started ad spots and he just wrote at the bottom of his newsletter. He's like, my click-through rate is like 15% on 40,000 people. Open rate's like 40%. I'm going to sell an ad spot for every newsletter who wants in. And like his inbox got flooded the next day because people who read it are like, oh, I want to promote my own thing. So it does get really easy. And he's also charging like a couple thousand. And I don't even think it's about the size of the newsletter. It's really about like what the open rate and click-through rate is. I'm especially inspired by Milk Road, which is the crypto newsletter. I feel like what Sean Parrish did for crypto is what people are trying to do for AI right now, because this is like the new wave. And they grew to definitely over 100K in 6 months. They ran Facebook ads. They ran TikTok ads. They're really trying to grow. And my friends from university, just people I went to university with, started The Gist, which is women in sports, because there's so much press on men's sports, like NHL, NBA, it's all men's, right? But like there's a huge women's college sports and women's sports business. There's tons of women who want to do sports, and like Lululemon and like the NBA, Nike, all sponsor their newsletter. So yes, very neat. They're not even that niche. Women in sports, I feel like, is kind of similar to like women in traveling, except for we added Asian onto it. So, but yes, I agree. And that's what we're trying to do with Asian Wonder Woman too. Okay, starting from scratch, you would try to build a very niche newsletter, which you're already doing for Option Asia. Anything else?
Honestly, I feel like my issue is that I dabble in too many projects, which like, you know, cuts my attention span. So like, I think honestly, that would just be like the one thing I'd focus on, like building that very like niche community and also scaling it. And then eventually working with like, I don't know, like tech companies that are hiring for perhaps like expats that want to go overseas in Asia. I don't know if I would do YouTube, honestly. I feel like YouTube, though,
you have to find your newsletter somehow, Emily. How would you distribute this newsletter?
I would do it through like TikTok or like Instagram, like Reels, like short form videos. 5 to 10 minute videos are quite like intense for like editing, especially if you're doing it all on your own. I would try to do like the whole viral thing through like TikTok and like Instagram Reels instead. And also like LinkedIn. Like LinkedIn has been the source of truth and like the source of like lead gen for like any newsletters.
Sounds like 4 different platforms, Emily. I thought you were going to focus on LinkedIn.
Well, the thing that I would focus on is like the newsletter itself. But again, like distribution channels would be like 3 like social medias. So
I would focus on one. Like I think for Option Asia, you should do LinkedIn.
More LinkedIn? Yeah.
Because people if people are looking for jobs in Asia, they're on LinkedIn.
Yeah.
They're not on like, they're not trying to travel like Instagram and TikTok. People are not looking for job advice on how to move to Asia on TikTok.
I mean, some of them do, right? Like that girl, like Miss Excel sheet, like she's teaching people how to make like Excel sheets.
That's true.
There's some sort of education element on social media, like TikTok and like Instagram.
Yeah,
but you're right.
That's true. That's true. Like compete where other people are not necessarily competing. With Instagram and TikTok, you're leaving it up to the algorithm a lot. Yeah. But once you get discovered, people might become obsessed. You have to really learn TikTok SEO. Apparently, that's like a big thing now. I follow someone on Twitter who talks about TikTok SEO, and I'm like, I just do not have the brain brain capacity to learn, like not to learn another platform that just like it might get banned for one. Like TikTok's the most dangerous in terms of being banned. And I really believe in focusing on one or two max. I'm also trying to dabble in too much, not just for myself, but for my company. And my head of marketing keeps telling me that. He's like, can you just do one platform? Like he has 500,000 followers. He's like, I first grew Twitter until I got to like 250K and then I went on LinkedIn. And then now I'm like just starting to do newsletter and stuff. But he's like, he wishes he did newsletter earlier.
Like
because
early
he
on,
tried to
right?
sell a course in like content creation. And he said his newsletter was only like 1 to 2K, like very little at that time. It wasn't even about AI. He just moved there. He was talking about content creation and marketing before. And that's how I found him. But he said that generated like 30 sales, let's say. And then his 500K following only generated like 5 sales. So all of this is just personal branding. And I think it leads to opportunities. It leads to conversations. People who are opting in already and giving you their email and giving you their attention and time, like privately. And then another micro yes of like more time and more like money and stuff will lead from there. It's hard to directly sell on social media. And like everyone knows that already. But I do think you should focus on
one platform,
1 or 2 max. Like definitely not. You just listed all of them. You're like, Twitter, except for Twitter.
I know. I didn't say Twitter. I'm not a fan of Twitter. I won't be on Twitter. But I do think it's like, it will be like this newsletter, right? Like I'm testing out Beehive right now, which is a pretty good platform.
Yeah, we're on Beehive.
And then posting on like LinkedIn.
You're saying that if you were to start over, you'd be like, okay, I'm going to go all in on this newsletter and I'm going to post on LinkedIn and like TikTok or whatever. If you were to start from zero to feel safe and like what makes you feel safe right now is that steady income that comes from like freelancing 20 hours a week, right?
Yeah, definitely. Yeah. I think it's just like, I like the flexibility and like the manager, like he doesn't really like breathe down like my neck and it's still like a pretty decent like salaried, like, it's like hourly job. So I'm happy with that right now. It's something that I would consider doing like long term, but eventually I want to create like something that's like more sustainable, like a digital course, something that sells on its own. So I don't have to keep maintaining it.
That shit does not sell on its own. You know, like my ebook does not sell on its own. You have to create content continuously. You need to build that list. You need to like nurture it. And it's one thing. So like when someone buys it, they don't buy again and they're now useless unless you create another product.
Yeah. Well, I guess like if I had the newsletter for Option Asia and I created a course, right?
Yeah,
like that would be another way to like retarget it.
Yeah. Basically focus on one realm, which is really hard for us to do because we like so many things.
Just do everything.
You know? If you already know that that's what you would do if you were to start from scratch, why aren't you dropping other things right now?
I am actually.
Oh, you are?
Like, yeah, I am. I really am. I mean, that's why you haven't seen me like post on YouTube, like long form videos in a while. I am really focusing on just like those 2 newsletters right now, which is like Asian Water Woman and then Option Asia. And then everything else is just like irrelevant right now. What about you?
So for me, if I were to just be leaving a 9 to 5 right now, or like I just lost everything, I got fired from my knock on friggin' wood. I don't want to get fired from my like CEO role. Yeah, it's a pretty interesting situation. What would I do with like nothing to my name and like 0 followers and like everything again? I would pick one platform and it would probably be still LinkedIn right now, just because I feel like very intellectual and it's easier to connect with people, right? On Twitter, you might not even follow your friends, but on LinkedIn, you definitely follow your friends. Like you connect, right, with your friends. Yeah. And so I would say the distribution of LinkedIn is still pretty good. And I know how to write on there. I feel comfortable on there. I think my first course of action is to make some income. So it would probably honestly be business coaching right now from building a business. That would probably be the easiest thing for me to just get a few clients on. I would think about like where I can make the most money in terms of like just have a few clients that pay me a lot of money. And it might be business, because usually business people, like you're helping them make money. And so I've never been a business coach before. So I'm just saying this out of like, I like talking about entrepreneurship. I have a lot of founders that follow me. I think I can consult in that space. And then once I have a steady income, either like freelancing or like coaching, I would focus on building a brand around like entrepreneurship and like travel and stuff. Basically what I'm doing already, and like restart this brand. Would I move into education immediately? Like maybe not, because I'm like pouring all of my like what I think might work already into my current job. But I am really inspired by, I guess I could go consult for edtech companies pretty easily, but I'm pretty inspired by something called Boundless Life, which is a community for world schoolers. So world schooling families can go and live in this like location for 3 months, 6 months, a year. And then there's like space for kids etc. So that would actually be kind of the niche that I would want to go into if I were to go into education again. And remember, I'm saying that I've lost everything, right? So all my like ed tech branding is gone. So like, but building that, it's hard. I know it's hard to build an ed tech brand because I'm not a parent right now and I'm not an educator, right? I'm just like, I built this for my little sister and this is what I would have wanted, and it's working. So that's kind of like what I'm riding on. And without what I'm currently doing, it'd be really hard to ride on that. So I would do something in the world schooling and community space and maybe grow like Asian Wonder Woman into more of a, we lose Asian Wonder Woman too. So yes, number one, build a brand for yourself. Number two, like whatever expertise you have, I would go for the highest paying clients and not like try to sell a low digital course product. Cause I think it's just as hard getting your first 10 customers that are paying you like $5,000 as it is getting the first 100 customers to pay you $5. So I would definitely do that. Coach, consult, whatever in anything. And then with that security, I would probably go build another business. Right now, I'm thinking about buying businesses. So I'm like obsessed with Cody Sanchez's content. Except for right now, I just don't have time to run a business that I buy. But like, I told Owen, my husband, this, and he just sent me like 2 micro acquire links this morning. So like, we're on it. We're like thinking about it, but I just like don't have time right now to do it. But that would be an option. Like if I had capital and like, I guess not starting from zero, but starting with a capital that I still have, I would totally go buy a business. I would go buy like a really boring business, like I'm probably not a laundromat, but Cody Sanchez talks a lot about laundromats, but I wouldn't do a laundromat. Laundromat's just like too much everywhere all at once or whatever.
I think as long as you have an operator, like you would be covered.
Exactly, I would hire an operator. Yeah. Because I know through Cody Sanchez, I know how to buy businesses where you invest the time and then like do like a seller financing. So you slowly pay them off. And I think with my business skills, I could probably do something boring, but that would not be travel friendly, wouldn't be nomadic friendly. But maybe I'll like still move to Lisbon and then I'll buy boring business in Lisbon. You got to start somewhere. But I think like to close this off, my closing point, and then you can have a closing point, is that I don't even know if I've shared this on a podcast before or like we've talked about this before, but Naval talks about in order to do everything, you need leverage, right? You need media leverage, which is like your personal brand and like your ability to reach millions. And once you know how social media works, how to write hooks and copyright and like go into these engagement pods, social media lets you speak to millions. Like no one ever has had that power, right? So like being able to do that, that's like a huge skill that like you and I are both working on. And then there's human leverage, which is like you can hire people, but like you won't have money to do that if you started from zero. Then there's like technology leverage, right? Like you can get technology to do the work that 10, 20, 100 people you would need to do, but like you know how to leverage it. And now I don't even think that's coding. And now it's like, can you leverage AI? Can you leverage like no code apps, etc.? And that's how I built all of my businesses. So no issues whatsoever. I can go build a no code, whatever ideas that I come up with. I'm not worried of like lacking business ideas. And then the final one is capital leverage too, which is, do you have money to like do the work for you? And so starting from zero, you would want to build up 1 or 2 of these. So what I'm choosing is like, I need to use social media to build up my capital leverage. But if I really had to, I could probably do a tech leverage too. With those things, I feel pretty confident that I have it in me to start over.
Agreed. I mean, I think you've already like proven it in this way, like shape or form. I definitely feel like the media leverage is something that people don't utilize or know how to do. But like, I do see people like who are out there kind of like talking to a broad audience, and they're just very like simple people, but because they had the audacity to like even like put themselves out there, like they garnered a following and like created like loyalty. So it'll be interesting to see how like content creation continues to evolve as like everyone builds their own brand. And given like the whole like economic issues, like people aren't really loyal to like tech companies anymore. Now they need to like rely on themselves and like as specialists and on their own personal brands to like make it out in this world. So yeah, I'm excited for the future. And I think you and I both will be okay regardless.
Exactly. Like once you've done it, that's the beauty of just being a person who does things. That's what I tweeted recently. I'm like, go be a person who doesn't just think about it. Like go do something. And the most valuable thing that we have to gain with the companies and like projects and communities that we've created is more that you figure it out once, you can do it again. You know, like it all goes away tomorrow. Like we have all the knowledge it takes. It just takes some more time, but like we'll be able to do it so much faster from the lessons that we've learned.
Yeah, agreed.
I'm the baddest chick. I'm not a thick. I'm about my business.